Can I go ahead and introduce? Does someone have a glowing introduction for Ms. Stern?
Oh, yes.
Like I got?
Hey. We do.
The official title, Chief of Railroads and Harbors, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, started with WisDOT in 2006. She was there when the Madison extension got pulled. Remember, we had 800 and some millions of federal grant. She's been under the bright lights of Hiawatha TCMC trains after the departure of Arun, who many of you remember. So with that, let's welcome our state leader, Lisa.
All right, well, good morning, Lisa Stern, Chief of Railroads and Harbors. I've been the chief since 2017. So Arun Rao was actually replaced by Rich Kezier. So Arun now works for Amtrak, and we're still working with him on the TCMC, so, and other expansions. Just go right to it. So I thought first I just put on a slide here, kind of overviewing all of the rail, the entire rail system here in Wisconsin. The passenger rail is on the CP, which is the pink line that comes up from Chicago to Milwaukee and then over to La Crosse. So currently that's the only one that has Amtrak or a passenger rail on it. But we have an extensive railroad system, just as you were talking about, Derek, across the country. We also have lots of opportunity here in Wisconsin, and much of these orange lines are actually state-owned as well. So. So here is from our state rail plan. These are the passenger rail routes that Wisconsin is looking at. You can see if we're doing additional routes, the Hiawatha, those additional routes will eventually carry on to locations like Green Bay, the extension of Madison up to Eau Claire, as well as an additional TCMC beyond the trade that we're working on now. So, and then additionally, you can see we are working with the Eau Claire, Chippewa, St. Croix County area on their passenger rail plans there between Eau Claire and Twin Cities. This is an overview of the corridor ID applications that Wisconsin DOT has been a part of. The first one is our top priority in the expanding the Hiawatha and doing additional round trips on the Hiawatha. That's key for all of the other plans, for most all the other plans outside of the Eau Claire, Twin Cities, and the NLX. So that's our top priority. We're also looking at adding an additional daily frequency between the TCMC on the La Crosse route. There is a plan and some conversations already with CP, so there is a potential way to move forward there. And then the other, kind of the second TCMC that would go through Madison and Eau Claire. I would just comment that on both of those routes, we're looking at extending from St. Paul to Minneapolis. So both of those would include an extension to Minneapolis with those corridors. And then the fourth corridor is the Green Bay extension. So that would be extending the Hiawatha up mostly on the CN. The exact route on the south end isn't determined yet, but that would be all part of this process. And they would go to Green Bay. And then we supported the Eau Claire to Twin Cities, which I'm sure Scott will talk about a little bit later. So we letter of support for that. And then we also had a letter of support for the NLX, which again, as was stated before, will have a stop in Superior and significant infrastructure needs throughout Douglas County. The TCMC. So we are currently working with Minnesota, Illinois, Amtrak to start up a new service. We've got a very promising timeline. We have lots of things to work out, equipment, starting up a new service in the state of Minnesota is then a challenge because they do not have that. So they are starting from scratch. So there's a lot of those things going on, but things are really moving well. I feel very confident that we're in a good spot here to start in the spring of
2024.
2024.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. This next spring. I have a personal interest in it. My son is a senior in high school. He is applying to the Twin Cities campus, so it's just got to be ready before he could.
It's like a movie cinema.
But this will be, I think we feel that this will be a very successful route. There's a lot of underlying ridership on the Empire Builder that are actually just riding through this section. So I think we can help complement that and expand the availability to passengers. Here, this is just talking about the construction project. So on top of one of the things that I think we have to thank Amtrak for is in their negotiations with Canadian Pacific is we are currently working on the infrastructure that's needed for the long-term sustainability of the passenger rail and freight rail on the system. But Amtrak was able to negotiate with CP that we are able to start that train service this spring versus waiting for this construction to end. We are currently working on the final design of the tracks and signal upgrades. We have projects in La Crosse and Winona and a couple other spots there in Minnesota. And the Mississippi River Bridge is being worked on as well. So that is the expected construction will be starting in May of 2025 for the track construction. There'll be others. You might see smaller construction happening with signals and other upgrades before that, but the main construction will be starting in May of 2025. Hiawatha. So this is our main route. And I just want to point out, and actually we can kind of just go to, I think we're all very familiar with it. This is our Hiawatha route between Chicago and Milwaukee. It is, we had that record performance of over 880,000 riders in 2019, but we are recovering. You can see here that we are at just under 70% of 2019 ridership. So I think the next slide has kind of a graph of the riders, and you can see it's very similar to Amtrak's national. 19 was also a record year for us, and then we had the pandemic, but we are growing year over year, and I think it's continuing to grow. And I just rode the Amtrak on Tuesday morning at the 6 a.m. train, and it was full of people again. So so we're coming back, and we're very excited about that. And also thankful working with Amtrak, getting more equipment out there. That's been very helpful. And the other thing that's part of our Hiawatha service is we have the throughway bus that's up to Green Bay. And I just want to point that out because it's been very successful. So we can just grow in ridership. There you can see this last calendar year is about 42% higher than 2022. And we started this right before the pandemic. So we started this in 2019, but it has, it did drop off a little bit. It recovered quicker than the train did. And we're talking about like a 4 a.m. bus that leaves from Green Bay. So I think this shows that there is a strong demand for ridership on this route as well. So connection to Milwaukee and Chicago. And a lot of these riders actually take the Hiawatha and go down to Chicago. I think it's between 30 to 50%, depending on the day, of riders actually get on the Hiawatha and take all the way to Chicago. This is our Milwaukee Airport Rail Station. This is currently under construction. I was excited to include some new construction photos. This from a couple of weeks ago. So the foundations of the East Tower have been poured. This is right before they poured the concrete. And there's doing the grading on the west side, and they have put in some of the elevator tower foundations on the west side as well. So this project is going along very well. It did come in quite a bit higher than the original estimate, as a lot of projects did, but we were able to get the funding together and get this moving. So construction will be completed either at the end of next year or probably early I think we're looking at May of 2025 at this point. Muskego Yard bypass, the environmental documentation is now complete. So that is an update that has been signed by FRA. We have also applied for the federal state partnership because part of the environmental process identified significantly increased infrastructure needs, including the fact that the original plan was to replace the Burnham Canal Bridge with a culvert. That needs to be a bridge. Through the environmental process, it was determined the needs there. The community and the waterways, it cannot be a culvert. And then there was some additional track needed on the north-south side. So we've gone back to the feds, asked for some more money. We're hoping to hear this later this year with the federal state partnership, whether this was accepted. And if once this gets awarded and we're fully funded, we're ready to move and get the solicitation and get the design moving right away. A lot of people are waiting for this project to, to be completed. Coordinating with the Mosquito Yard, we have fully funded the CPC projects. This is the signaling through the station and out to cut off. So the kind of that north leg over that's north, the freight rail runs on now. That will be relocated to the south with this Mosquito Yard project. But right now that's very old signaling. And this project is upgrading it. We do have the preliminary engineering completed and it's currently being reviewed by FRA. Once the FRA accepts that, we'll have the grant will be executed and we'll move forward with final design. All right, so this is about our new equipment. Wisconsin is part of the Midwest pool, and as Derek said, part of the Midwest pool agreements was going to outfit Amtrak or the Hiawatha, one of the consists with the new venture cars. The additional venture cars, I know we've gotten a few extra at the moment, but we are guaranteed at least one of those under the existing equipment owned by the Midwest. We are currently acquiring 6 new coach cars and 3 cab coach cars, and those will become into the Midwest equipment pool, and then the entire Hiawatha will have the new venture car, and they'll have the cab coach cars too, which will increase the seating and replace the NPCUs or whatever is there today. Yeah. So yeah, which have become very expensive to maintain. So hopefully it will also help our operating costs. But those are expected to be in service, delivered late 2025 and ready for service early 2026. And that's all I have.